I really like animated films. That's not to say specifically kids' films, because, contrary to popular opinion, not all animation is for children. It's really not. But most of it is. Fortunately, I like children's or family films too. I don't really see it as that much different from liking children's books, and I know a lot of adults who frequently read or reread children's books, including my mum, who won't watch anything animated for being too kiddie, but is currently working her way through a bunch of old-school pony books for little girls in days of yore. There's something safe and comforting about children's media. Nothing bad happens, or if something bad does happen, it's resolved, and it always ends happily. Usually ends happily. Raymond Briggs, I'm looking at you. Generally speaking, you don't finish the story more depressed than you were when you started it, and I'm depressed like 80% of the time, so it's a nice relief. Which brings us to Trolls. Now, I quite liked the first Trolls film, released in 2016 by Dreamworks. It had a nice message at its heart about happiness and fulfillment, fun character designs, and some very mean-spirited jokes. Now, it's no Shrek, but I liked it. I can see why others don't. If you don't like frothy, upbeat songs or bright colours or some really weird jokes, you won't have a fun time. And it's not without its childish humour. Ha! Butts. Also, side note, and there will be a lot of side notes, so... John Cleese is briefly in this as King Gristle Sr. Apparently, DreamWorks really likes to cast him as old greenish monarchs with limited time upon this mortal coil. And by that I mean they did it twice, and... Yeah. But despite all that, I liked it, and honestly, it probably should have stopped there. But, as you know...
We've got to have money.
So out came Trolls 2, World Tour, and... honestly, for a sequel, it's not that bad. Don't get me wrong, it's not as good as the first one, but they didn't fall into the usual pitfalls to which sequels usually succumb. It wasn't a lazy rehash of the first plot, the characters don't unlearn their lessons, they don't undo anything from the first one. It's actually quite a natural progression. Sure, Poppy turns into a bit of an idiot, but I get why. After her success with uniting the Trolls and friendship with their sworn enemies, the Bergens, she's on a high. Surely establishing familiar bonds of unity and peace with the other Trolls will be a walk in the park. Sure, there's some bad history with them, but it's not like the Trolls ate people, and Poppy's never really been that great at listening or taking on board what other people say, so it's fine. The world building feels like a natural continuation. We see that outside of the forest where the Pop Trolls and the Bergens live, there are other troll communities based on different forms of music. Classical, country, funk, techno and rock. Cool. There's even a map, and you know how much I love a map. The plotline is new. They're not trying to save friends from troll-eating enemies, but trying to stop one group of trolls from wiping out all the other styles of music. My sister pointed out that it's a little strange that the trolls who want everyone to be the same are the rock trolls, what with rock music usually being associated with freedom and self-expression, rage against the establishment, instead of fascism. Arguments could be made for the classical trolls being a more likely candidate because of traditionalism, or the techno trolls for being the most tech-advanced, wanting to spread their wisdom. But I don't know. I don't think the rock trolls were that bad a choice. They weren't necessarily trying to make everyone the same for uniformity's sake, but trying to wipe out inferior genres because everything else is terrible and not real music, which is a mindset I often see online from people who only listen to classic rock. You know, boomers. Rock boomers. What is weird is it's the young Queen who holds this opinion in the film and not her dad, Ozzy Osbourne. But then I worked it out. You see, rock music is often associated with the Brits because Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry's rock and roll roots aside, we practically invented rock. That's why rock stars usually have British accents in media.
You're just jealous because I sound like a rock star.
That's why it has to be the rock trolls trying to take over, because that's what the British would do. This isn't a film about music and dancing, it's about colonialism. Which means that when the pop trolls tried to take over before the events of the film, they were supposed to be Alexander the Great. And let's face it, he was a total preppy. Also, side note, it's weird that at least a third of the troll communities have a young queen in charge when their dad, who in normal monarchic hierarchies should be king, is still alive. Even if the dads were just old and infirm, Poppy and Barb would be princess regents, like George IV was regent when his dad, George III, was chatting up trees and promoting horses. I don't know, maybe DreamWorks are making some subtle political statement? In which case, this guy better watch his back. Anyway, Trolls 2, it's not without its problems. It does suffer some issues. I guess Poppy is a little too idiotic at times, and they have to do the whole third act breakup, and the romance subplot got completely shafted when it came to resolutions. I mean, what even was that? Really? I would have liked to have seen the music used a little more cleverly. In the first film, the soundtrack really went to a lot of effort, incorporating repeated tunes into the instrumental, incidental music to illustrate characters' emotions, and this absolutely sick version of Hall of the Mountain King. This one, I don't know. I think there were some good songs and renditions, but they didn't bleed through the entire film in the way that the first one managed. I also thought they could have handled the different types of music genre a little better. I mean, trying to actually give definitions to musical genres is pretty difficult anyway. How do you define pop? I mean, I know it means popular, but you can have popular songs that are rock or country or techno. Where does folk fit into the radar? Country seems the obvious instinct, but whilst I can maybe buy these guys doing something like The Irish Rover, there's no way in hell My Little Dolly Parton is singing an authentic version of Three Ravens or Lyndon Lee. Then what about Sound of Silence by Simon Garfunkel? That's folk, but the pop troll sang it in the first one. I don't mean that the guidelines should be more solid in this, but more nebulous, and that this should be noticed. Pick a song that all the trolls sing, so we can hear the different musical takes on it. Have the pop trolls sing a song near the beginning, then have the country one sing an acoustic, mellow rendition later, a techno remix, a guitar-laden shredfest, an orchestral arrangement, a funk version. Show through the music the core of the story's message, that the trolls are united as one being, at heart, trolls, but are allowed to celebrate their cultural differences. Then you could have an actual fusion at the end of all the versions of that song, instead of a pop song with a guitar solo in the middle. And there were more music jokes that could have been made, like different forms of rock. Where were the punk rock trolls, and the heavy metal trolls, and the death metal trolls, and the doom metal trolls, and the other million types of metal trolls? I didn't say pirate metal. Never mind. And where were the classical trolls? I feel betrayed. We only really saw them in a short flashback in the background. You could have had the Baroque trolls, and the Romantic trolls, and the postmodern trolls, and the ballet trolls, and the opera trolls. Trolls that were kicked out by the snobby classical trolls for not being classical enough, like Ian troll, and Carl Jenkins troll, and John Cage troll. Sure, only music students would find it funny, but it's a better joke than a penny whistle. What's a penny whistle doing there? Why not a piccolo or something you might actually find in a typical classical orchestra? Also, are all the instruments alive in this? Did Branch murder that ukulele in the first film? Anyway, that is all made up for by the addition of one character. I am talking, of course, about Chaz, the smooth jazz troll. I love him. I don't know which troll community he belongs to, or if he lives on his own little jazz island, or if he's some ageless primordial being like Tom Bombadil, living in the wilderness with his hot wife Moira the Mongolian throat-singing troll. Anyway, after Poppy briefly destroys music and turns everyone grey, until they realise that music was inside them all along, and they glow and turn colourful again, which is kind of what they did in the first film, but music represented a different metaphor here, so it's fine. Although, side note, is it me, or is Branch a little greyer in this film? I mean, at the end of the first one, his hair turns a really nice sapphire blue, and then in the next two, it's black again? Did he get depressed again, or...? I'm worried for him. Troll 2 ends happily, hooray, and they really should have stopped there. I mean, really. But, as you know...
We've got to have money.
We can stretch this out to another film, they said. Justin Timberlake, wasn't he in one of those male choirs, but for young people? Let's use that. And so Trolls 3, Band Together, came out, and they really should have stopped after the second one. I had issues with this film. I watched it once, and I thought it was insane and moped for a while because it destroyed the sanctity of the first one. Then I watched it again and found I enjoyed it more on a second viewing at first, then it got worse again. And there are three main reasons for this. Firstly, the music was not well integrated. The first two films function almost like musicals, where the singing and dancing serve a purpose. They come at key parts of the plot and either move the plot along or earmark an important emotional beat and allow the characters to illustrate said emotions to the audience without just randomly announcing how they feel.
You can't just have your characters announce how they feel! That makes me feel angry!
Here, some of the songs are more integrated into the plot, but not very well. The first mashup is okay, where Gristle and Bridget are preparing to get married. Side note, they got completely shafted from the second film. Rude. Though I guess having troll-eating giants on their side would have made it a very short film. Anyway, that mashup was fine. We're introduced to the current state of affairs, and it's a nice introductory number, and actually a pretty good medley. Though I must raise an eyebrow about Bridget not thinking about her wedding dress until the morning of the wedding? I'm not very organised, but even I'm not that bad. The song that Vida and Poppy sing is okay to start with, but once Branch's group joins in, it kind of loses focus. I guess the songs that this movie's villains, Velvet and Veneer, sing make sense as they are legit pop stars, but they mostly just sing Sweet Dreams by the Eurythmics and do very little with it. All the boy band songs feel inserted just for the sake of boy band songs, adding very little to the plot or emotional beats, and the themes just don't carry through the film at all. Which makes sense because reason number 2 this film failed is that the music does not carry any weight. See, in the first 2 films, the music was a metaphor with real-world applications. In the first film, music represented happiness and contentment. The trolls are super happy and sing happy songs. The only troll who doesn't sing is Branch because he is unhappy and clearly representative of depressive symptoms, and doesn't believe himself worthy of being happy. He doesn't even try to be happy. The Bergens aren't content and don't realise that they hold the ability to be content within themselves, despite wanting to be happy, so they sort of sing, but it's dreary and soulless and tired. And once they realise they can be happy, they're able to sing and dance. That or they just didn't have any good music to dance to. Maybe it was a cautionary tale about removing the arts from schools, and all the Bergens were just forced to take STEM subjects. These films are deeper than I thought. In the second film, the music is a metaphor for cultural identity. Yes, the different trolls represent different genres of music, but they're also kind of like different peoples, and how sometimes some people think their way of doing things is better than other people's, and try to force them to give up their ways. Like I said, this film is about colonialism. That wasn't just a joke. Kind of is. The music serves a thematic purpose, which gives every song reason to exist. Even the numbers where the action just seems to stop randomly for a number, like that country song. Side note, why does this world think all country music is depressing? Some of it's very upbeat. If they wanted depressing music, trolls, why not use the blues? Anyway, the country song stops the plot briefly, but it makes sense because it introduces Poppy to a new style of music, and she's able to react to it. It has purpose. But here, the music doesn't mean anything. The film's main theme is about familial bonds, but the music doesn't reflect that. If it did, Branch and his brothers' songs would be rubbish until the final act when they are finally able to come together to show how their relationship gradually is repaired. If anything, the music represents talent, but it's so nebulous and it really only applies to the villains sucking Floyd's life force, which you cannot apply to the real world like you can with the first 2 films. You can see how the themes of happiness and contentment apply to the real world, how the importance of appreciating and respecting other cultures applies to the real world, but that's not how talent works in the real world. You don't suck it out of someone. You know what would have worked? What would have been relevant and made a whole lot more sense? If the villains were stand-ins for AI. Yeah, you know, that newfangled thing that takes the work of real artists and twists them into soulless rubbish. The thing that is actually hurting artists, not by sucking the talent out of them, but by forcing them to lose out on their livelihood and reducing their hard-earned skills to a command you chuck into a computer. Why not make the villains a robotic AI thing that consumes art and produces something rubbish, but produces it quickly and cheaply compared with getting actual artists in? Wouldn't that give the music more relevance? With real-world applications about hard work and fair treatment instead of whatever the hello this is? Third, this film doesn't really make any sense with the first 2. For many reasons. Branch, in a boy band as a baby? I'm sorry, when? When they lived in the tree in Bergentown? Why has he never mentioned them before? You think they might have come into his tragic backstory? Singing killed my grandma and also drove away my brothers, perhaps. Poppy has a sister? And a bunch of trolls didn't escape the tree, but why did no one ever mention them? The whole village was keeping this secret from Poppy. You think Branch might have told her? He was clearly old enough to remember his grandma getting eaten and being in a band before that. He might have remembered her sister. Side note, Poppy fangirls over Brozone like she was a contemporary fan, but she would have been a baby or maybe a fetus during their heyday. How does that work? What is going on here? Another side note, Clay doesn't know their grandma got eaten, but isn't it kind of implied he escaped with Vida from the troll tree? So, how did he not know? Or did he find them later? Still, it does give us one of the funnier lines in the film.
Wait, Grandma got eaten?
Vida, Poppy's sister, who must be much older, my word, lives in an old Bergen mini-golf course. Why? Just because Bergens don't use it now doesn't mean they never will. I mean, Bergens must know about it, and they may well come back. You know what Bergen teenagers are like. And why did the Bergens have mini-golf? Until about 2 months ago, they didn't know how to be happy. If you don't know how to be happy, you won't be building mini-golf courses. What depressed person plays mini-golf? Look at this dude. Do you think he's going to go out and play a few rounds after this? Side note, I want this gravestone when I die. Honestly, I don't think the sibling stuff was strong enough to stand as the main theme in this. I can see what they were doing, it just didn't do anything new or interesting with it. And Vida felt so forced. Poppy spends half the film saying she wants a sister, so they give her one with a backstory that makes no sense. Wouldn't it have been better if they didn't do that, and Poppy learns to appreciate her friends as her chosen family, and that how being blood-related doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get along or even be good for each other? I wouldn't have given Branch Brothers either, with how badly it clashes with the established lore. I can see why they want to do the boy band thing, because of Justin Timberlake, yada yada yada, but why not insert it into an actual blind spot, like Branch's parents? We never see or hear about them, as we assume they died before his grandma died. Why not have his dad be the ex-member of Brozone who was left behind by his brothers? Maybe he kept the records and played them, which informed Branch's love of music. His parents then die when he's young from a case with the Bergens, but he still sings to feel close to his father until grandma croaks. Then the Brozone reuniting thing will feel more like an actual boy band reuniting, an attempt to recapture the glory days that inevitably fails because you can't replicate something made unfairly perfect by nostalgia, and because one of the members has kicked the bucket. Branch can still be angry at his uncles for them leaving his dad, and still have to learn to forgive them. Then what if the villains were old one-hit wonders or something, trying to get back into the public eye but unable to write anything new? So they tried to get more talented artists to create something for them, which the villains steal the credit for, thus creating a connection between the good and the evil guys, both trying to find some lost fame, only they go about it in different ways. Wouldn't that make more sense, but still carry the theme of family love and forgiveness this movie is so desperately striving for? Now for the other things that annoyed me. They can't bust Floyd out using brute strength because his gel is made of diamond. That is not a diamond. You can see straight through it. Diamond has a very high refractive index, which is the gem's ability to split light passing through it. This is what gives it its fire, i.e. the little shards of rainbow that make it sparkly. One easy test to tell if something is possibly not a diamond is to place it on a piece of paper with a dot drawn on it. If you can see the dot, your gem is not a diamond because light has not split inside. Floyd is as clear as day. That prison is either paste or cubic zirconia. I cannot believe I'm getting this upset over the lack of realism in a film where the sun has a face. Side note, those diamond jars must open, otherwise how did these freaks get Floyd inside in the first place? Clay was right, phone the police, blimey. What happened to Poppy's scrapbooking? That was a fun facet to her character and used throughout both films several times to explain backstory and cunning plans. In the third one it's like, oh, she's a scrapbook. Damned if we're actually going to do anything stylistically with it. They could have illustrated the break-in plan with it. What were they doing? The geography is confused. Where exactly is Mount Rageous? Or the Vacay Island? Is that near the Techno Trolls? Is Mount Rageous up in the sky? Where's this mini golf course? There was a map in the second one. I want my map. Also, what is with this island of Hoover rejects? They freak me out and I don't like them. Is this glittery toilet roll? Isn't that painful? What the heck is this thing, and why did they waste Dolly Parton's 9 to 5 on it? There is a character called Vida, and they didn't use Viva La Vida or Live in La Vida Loca? Missed opportunity or what? Was Branch addicted to drugs before? When he was in the band as a baby? And why is this film encouraging driving whilst on drugs? Side note, didn't Justin Timberlake get arrested for driving under the influence earlier this year? Absolute baller move of this movie to take Amy Schumer, American so-called comedian who got outed as being a material-stealing leech, and cast her as the talent-stealing phony. Why is Tiny Diamond? Just why? What the hell is Rhonda? Is it alive? Is it mechanical? Why is everything suddenly sentient in this world? First the hot air balloon and the penny whistle and now the discount My Neighbor Totoro bus? Remember in the first film how the trolls and the animals were sentient and nothing else? Apart from this cloud guy? What is with the names in this? They make sense in the first one. Poppy and Creek and Branch are all nature names, and Peppy is like happy, and Biggie is big, and Fuzzbert is fuzzy, and Smidge is little, and Saturn likes fabric, and Chantel likes chantilly cream, and DJ Suki's parents were fans of After the Last Airbender, and Cooper makes barrels. All very sensical. But look, I get Clay and Bruce, whatever, because they're naturey, and Floyd is a curious choice. Veneer I get because veneer is like a coating or a facade, and velvet is a little odd. But John Dory? John Dory? What is he named after the fish? Is Dory their surname? Are Brozone the Dory family singers? Is Branch actually Branch Dory? What? There's a mini golf course and they don't use it. How cool would a music video style song segment be, going through the different holes with the windmills and the this thing? I have no idea what it is, but I feel like it would be voiced by John Cleese. Look, I don't know why they keep churning out these films. Oh wait, yes I do.
Money.
Justin Timberlake did say that he hopes they make about 7 of these because they're the gift that keep on giving, which I think is just celebrity talk for easy money. Will I watch the next inevitable instalment? Probably, if more out of morbid curiosity than hope, but I'm open to the possibility of an upswing in quality. And look, I get that maybe I'm nitpicking it and focusing too much on the internal logic and continuity when these are kids' films, and kids don't actually care about that. Kids won't question when things don't add up or a film contradicts itself. Okay, sure. But just because kids don't care doesn't mean that we, the creators, shouldn't either. I mean, when did kids start to mean so little that it became alright not to try anymore? And that's all I have to say on this topic. Goodbye.